I'll be honest, I haven't really done a whole lot of research into it itself, but the situation with Rodney, and it was a fascinating one. Rodney Hill, who he's transferred from Florida A&M, but he was originally at Florida State. And he's kind of a late addition, didn't really think much of it. But he had kind of an interesting story that I wanted to bring up because it's I had no idea about it. And apparently neither did Jaquindon Jackson, because he's like, I learned something new about it today. But here's kind of the journey that Rodney's been on in finding his way at Arkansas.
That situation, not many people know, but my parents was running my money and stuff like that. And my parents got a bad agent, and he was texting other schools like he was me. And so when they got back to the head coach, I had to leave Florida State. And during that time when I had to leave, I wasn't trying to leave. I didn't want to leave, so I just had to. And the portal was closing up, so Florida A&M was next door. So I just had to go there for a month. Yeah, find a new place. Yes, sir.
Like, I didn't know anything about that, but it's kind of crazy to think, a lot of these journeys that guys on with the transfer portal and NIL. Apparently his parents just got in with the wrong type of agent who was texting other schools acting like him. Man, that's an insane story for him.
That's tough. Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either. And I hadn't heard that. I didn't listen to the players earlier this morning. So that's kind of crazy. I mean, good for him for getting out of that situation. I love how he's like, Florida A&M was next door, so I had to go there for like a month, but
he'll never forget his time there.
Yeah.
Well, dude, okay, it threw me off because like when he committed, I remember it being a thing where it was like Florida A&M, Florida State, but then I'm like, he was playing for Florida State like literally in December, and so I was like, hey, that kind of threw me off. I thought it was a typo on the ArkansasRazorbacks.com. I was like, why does it say he's coming from Florida A&M? Like he's clearly coming from Florida State.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently he technically transferred from Florida A&M.
That stuff happens probably way more than we know, and then goes public. That's a big thing with basketball recruiting too, because everybody, especially now that NIL is a factor. I mean, the best players have agents, like legitimate, but a lot of them have handlers, and I use that term loosely because it'll be an AAU coach or somebody's uncle or whatever, and they don't always have the kid's best intentions, in mind there. So that stuff can get really shady. Even like, if like a kid's coming to visit Arkansas or whatever, and you're just trying to get him for an interview to talk about it or something, you got to go through these handlers, and sometimes it's pretty straightforward. And they're just like, oh yeah, for sure, we'll get you set up. And then other times, you can just tell, man, that it's shady. They'll be asking you for, oh yeah, well, if you run $100 through Venmo and we'll get you set up. Like, it's just, you just know that sometimes it's not really on the up and up, man. And so I can't imagine how often stuff like that actually happens and we don't really know about it.
Yeah. And especially like for someone like him, because he mentioned this also in the press conference too, where, he went to Florida A&M. He didn't even participate in spring. He apparently just he just worked out. Was just there using their facility because they were trying to figure stuff out. But, it is a crazy thing to go from a Florida State and then go to Florida A&M and then find your way at another SEC school where, a lot of cases may not have been. But it was so interesting hearing him say, he's like, I wasn't looking to leave. I didn't want to leave. I was wanting to stay. But because of those circumstances, he was having to leave. And so, people may say that was like, oh, well, if you don't want to be here, that's not the point. Point is like, this is kind of a thing where I'm sure being motivated is one of his big factors of like, dude, it's like my life got turned upside down and I'm getting a fresh start, a second start, and trusting the wrong people with their money and with their, their business and their company and all that stuff. It's, it happens a lot. It happens a lot here in this day and age.
Yeah. And I think it's just a lesson for everyone. If you want to comment on things like, look, I get it. You love your team or whatever. And so when players leave or whatever, and you want to have your comment, but the people that assume they know what the hell they're talking about, and they'll just be like, oh, this kid left because of this. And this kid left. Like, we are very close to the team and we don't know most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, you hear 17 different things. And so I think it's just a lesson that if you want to comment on players' decisions and what they're doing, especially in this day and age, just don't, like, I understand if you want to discuss the impact of it and all that, but yeah, you just never know what's going on. And it's the wild, wild west these days, man, with NIL, with the way these people are handling their rosters, kids getting processed and all that. I mean, there's not like it's no longer the days of like, oh, I'm just transferring because I want to play more, or I don't like the coach or whatever. There's so many reasons why these guys are moving around all over the country.
Yep.
Yeah, I just I hate that for him, but you know,